Oh good, you're here. HiraliousBone's back again, and I have to make a response. You guys, we've been called out. And you know there's only one thing to do when we've been called out. Challenge accepted! Today, we've been set a seemingly insurmountable task by fellow YouTuber Artsy Madwoman.
Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel.
She may not realize she did it, but she did it.
I got big dreams today, alright? I don't know if this is gonna work. I've had this idea of possibly trying to make like a resin snow globe.
Last winter, she made a magnificent snow globe that I wanted to try putting my own spin on. Her concept.
We're gonna take this mold, we're gonna put this mold inside this mold, and then we're gonna pour resin around it.
I think she did a fabulous job with her snow globe, and you all should go watch that video after you watch this one. This will be a challenge for the ages. To begin with, I was thinking of making a globe of twisted wire and then coating it in resin. I had this metal plate with peg holes all over it. I used a giant ornament bauble as a template and drew a design to build our twisted wire globe. My design doesn't fit on the metal plate, and I don't have enough of the bigger pegs to smoothly and efficiently twist this wire, so I had to keep moving things around. Problem solving. This is 12 gauge copper wire that I got from Parawire. It's an online store where you can get wire and jewelry making supplies. I figured out that 50 inches of copper wire would be enough to twist the whole design, with a little left over. After I measured it out, I folded the 50-inch wire in half and started muscling this thick boy around the pegs. If I were to do this again, I would look for pegs that screw into the board. Maybe I'll have to make it, but I kept getting wire under the pegs, and that distorted the loops I was trying to make. I think that this would not be as big of a problem with thinner wire. I filmed this several months ago when we were moving, so this was a temporary setup. Sorry about the harsh lighting. I had to use an arsenal of tools to bring this wire in line. I admire Artsy Madwoman, her name's Heather, very much. She has so many original ideas, and she pushes herself with each project. She isn't afraid to try new things, and she isn't afraid to fail.
I want to try to make a resin snow globe, and even if this fails, you're still gonna see it, because I need to keep reminding myself that failures are lessons. So anyway, we're gonna try to make a resin snow globe today.
I really enjoy her work. I do think we might be able to get the walls of our snow globe a little thinner. After I got the upper loops the way I wanted them, I moved the pegs down the design to keep going. The two sides of wire overlap in the center. After I finish the design, I will wrap thinner wire around the center piece to secure the parts together. The design is symmetrical, so to do the bottom part, I flipped it over and went back up the pegs I just used. I like using this thicker wire because it's so much sturdier than thinner wire. That feels like a very obvious statement. But you know, I've found that sometimes people need to have obvious statements said out loud. So there you go. Thicker wire is harder to work with though. I didn't end up finishing the segments with the largest peg. I left it open to wrap around a ring as the base of the globe. I didn't end up doing that, but at this point, that was the plan. My hands were killing me by the time I finished creating all these segments. I made 9 of them, but only ended up using 7 segments for the final globe. I'll connect the segments with a 20 gauge wire. I'll show you later. First, I wanted to show you how I was planning on coating the globe in resin. I watched a video by Nelco Neco, I'll link it down below, where she uses this reusable clay that becomes moldable in hot water, The clay has a waxy texture that resin doesn't adhere to. I heated up the clay and molded it to the twisted wire segment to test out if I could make this work. And look! It worked! I discovered that Sophie and Toffee, a resin supply store, has a UV resin specifically dedicated to wire dipping. That's what I'm trying to do! I end up going with another technique, but let me know if you would like me to try another resin-dipped wire project. I'm finally putting all the pieces together. I built them in 2 halves. After connecting the segments with 20 gauge wire, I stiffened the joint with some resin over it. As I'm developing as an artist, I'm trying to pay more attention to every detail of the piece. I twisted each 20 gauge piece 3 times around the thicker wire to make it all uniform. Terribly uninteresting, isn't it? But it looks more finished and professional if you pay attention to those boring details. This is a lesson. I had to adjust the shapes of each segment to get them to fit together, but that's the nice thing about it being made of wire. It's adjustable. You have to be careful when you're pouring resin. If you pour it too thick, it can get too hot too fast and warp and discolor. I believe that is why you use slower curing resins for bigger projects, so they don't heat up too much too quickly. Also, I believe the slower curing resin will release more bubbles without the use of a pressure pot. But we will be keeping the walls of our globe thin, so we shouldn't have to worry about that business. I assembled the other half off camera and have already fixed those joints. But this is the idea. It will be more globular when I solidify the rest of the joints. I also ended up taking out one of the segments before the full assemblage. At this point, I was a bit stalled because... Did you see those tiny pots of dip resin compared to the size of our giant globe? I'm not sure I have enough resin for this. Then I saw a very interesting video by Maaue Resin channel that reminded me of a technique called rotational casting. I went online and found some transparent globe molds. I got the biggest one I could find. For rotational casting, we put a little bit of our casting material, like resin, into a silicone mold. We don't want to fill it because we want an empty cavity in the center, but we want to add enough to have a decent coat on the inside of the mold. Then we rotate it to cover the entire inside of the mold until it cures. Now, it's pretty difficult to get the thickness of the globe consistent with this technique. I had a heat gun going as I was turning the globe to thin the resin and get it to where I needed it to go with as few bubbles as possible. But the resin cures at different rates because the thickness is inconsistent. There are a couple spots that warp the viewing inside the globe. The glycerin and water distort things a little as well, so I'm not even sure you can tell. After a few moments, it was solid enough to stop rotating it, and I set it down to finish curing. I cured this a couple times on each side to make sure it was good and solid. Sometimes UV resin can be solid but have a sticky film over top, and if you try to demold it at that point, you'll get all kinds of gross texture in the stickiness. Pardon me. I struggled actually a lot more than that, but I cut that out to make myself feel better about it. We did it! I almost didn't believe it. It's so clear and lovely! So, what are we going to put inside our beautiful snow globe? I'm not sure if you're aware, but there have been some crazy storms going on in the US lately. Los Angeles has been getting hit with record rains, and even snow if you can believe it. The rains and winds have done a number on all of the beautiful plants around the neighborhood, and I think we will emulate these storms with our... It's no longer a snow globe. It's a blizzard cylinder. That's not right. A cyclone sphere. A tempest orb. Orb of tempest. We'll continue to workshop it. Focus. What were we talking about? I picked some of my favorite leaves and filled their mold with resin. I'm using a silicone pointed tool to guide the resin into all the nooks and crannies and get as many bubbles out as I can. This mold is really detailed. I think it was meant for sugar. With UV resin, it's better to have a translucent or transparent mold so you can cure both sides before demolding. Remember that time I told you about the stickiness that will give your piece unwanted texture? Curing on both sides before demolding helps prevent that stickiness. Since this one was opaque, I cooked the one side for about 3 minutes and tried to be careful while I was demolding. If you can demold in one smooth motion and then try not to touch the parts that could be tacky, it can work out. I think they came out well. And if they are a little strangely textured, it's a twister ball. The leaves would be a little damaged. I also found some little flowers that I cast in resin to include. Beautiful. I decided that I wanted a lot of color throughout our monsoon marble. I brought in some metallic colors, copper, gold, and antique bronze. For this lovely leaf, I started with a layer of copper, then added gold around the edges. I finished the color layers with green. At this point, I had an idea, but I kind of want it to be a surprise. So I'm not gonna tell you yet. I'm dry brushing thin layers of paint so you can see through them as I add color. I was trying to build the colors in the opposite way that I normally do, with the intention of the front of the leaf being the side opposite of the painted side. It worked for some of them. Some of them were too pretty painted side up, so I decided as I went which side I liked better. My color selection was mostly instinctual, but I tried to adhere to somewhat realistic leaf colors. So I used green, orange, gold, red, brown, and purple because I like it. Beautiful! I didn't feel like I could get away with blue. Sometimes I struggle with simplicity. It shows. But I think I did an okay job with this element of this project. Meaning I kept the number of colors that I used for these leaves to 2 or 3. Yikes. Bones, I hear you cry. These colors are so washed out. What is going on? If nothing else, we know you love color. Are you ill? Worry not, loyal viewer. I do love color, and we are not done yet. After I decided which side I liked better, I painted the backing black to make those colors pop. You know this old tune. Make those colors pop. And they do. Beautiful. Oh my goodness. I have these weird ivy vines, and some fern leaves, and some rose and plumera blossoms. I found some iridescent leaf beads in my stash that I threw in for good measure. What a windstorm globule we're making. I did the 50% glycerin, 50% water ratio that has been suggested by Heather in her video. This was terrifying and exciting. I decided that I didn't want glitter floating at the top, so I added some gold-colored glass shards that I had laying around. I think it goes with the color scheme nicely. I stirred it to mix the glycerin and water, and I thought I ruined everything. There were so many bubbles, and the liquid inside was not clear, and I was so sad. It looks like a swamp. Bah, wah. But I refused to quit. I filled the rest up with water and prepared the seal. I made a flat disc of UV resin to seal in the bottom. I wanted to be as efficient as possible to avoid spilling anything, so I put down the UV resin, turned the lamp on, then put the seal over the hole and cured it. There's a better way of doing this, using a really thin protective plastic film so you can eliminate any air bubbles. I tried using the film in a test, and the surface area at the edge of the globe was so thin, the glycerin kept mixing with the liquid resin so it wasn't sticking. I had to make the seal a little thicker, and I was able to make it work. Some pieces of the glass were stuck to the top at first, but I made quick work of dislodging them. I was so sad. I put it to the side for a few days, and to my delight, the fogginess cleared up and most of the bubbles dissipated. However, I thought we might be able to see what's going on a little better if the bottom was black. I mixed some black iridescent glitter and black powder pigment into the resin, forgetting that this will make it very difficult for the resin to cure, because black will block and absorb the light. I realized this when the outside cured and the inside did not. Sometimes I feel I'm too smart to be this stupid, but I look at it as the universe keeping me humble. You can still be awesome and make mistakes. That is a thing that happens. More than you would expect, actually. I just want to coat the seal with black resin. I'll be building on top of this lip after it's cured. I'm trying to clean up the edges to avoid the need to sand anything. Look how clear and lovely it looks.
So we are going to end up having to drill into it anyway, because there is kind of like a big air pocket that I can't stand. I can't stand this right here, because when you hold it straight up and you like shake it around, it's just like right in your face the whole time. It's like, hey, you didn't finish.
I let it sit for a day in the sun, and luckily it solidified. I'm building up the bottom in thin layers because I'm running out of resin, and we still have a long way to go before we sleep. This is the final size of our base. Oh my goodness, our storm bead is so beautiful. I love it! I could not be more pleased.
In most snow globes, I feel like there's like something in the middle, like a, a Christmas tree or a house or something.
Remember this fellow? Looking sharp. What if we put a sphere inside a sphere? I still want to be able to shake our typhoon planet, so we're going to affix the two spheres together. This is actually a plastic lid that I had laying around. It should do nicely as the final base. It's wide enough for the twisted wire orb to sit inside of it. For the final time, I coat the bottom of this disc and stack my spheres in the sticky mess. I try to keep it centered, but I did not succeed. It gives it character. I pushed down on the wire while the resin was curing to make sure all the wire pieces were in contact with the resin. I made sure to cure both sides before trying to get the plastic off the resin. I love it, but we aren't quite done. I think a whirlwind rondure of this magnitude would have leaves and plants tumbling inside and out, so I'm going to decorate the outside of the twisted wire sphere with some more of these lovely painted leaves. Sometimes I struggle with simplicity. This would have been easier if I had a smaller UV torch. Oh well, we will make it work. Oh wow, can you believe this?
This is my pride and joy, and I love it so much.
For its final form, I painted the base black on the bottom and sealed the paint with a final coat of UV resin. Have you seen Heather's video? How does our Gale balloon stack up to her fantastic snow globe? Let me know down in the comments. Thank you, Artsy Madwoman, for such a fantastic idea. I hope someday she'll get a chance to see this and know she helped inspire it. Alright, you goofballs, what do you think? There were so many moments when I thought I'd ruined it and I just wanted to curl up and cry. But sometimes you have to trust your instinct and your eye and just keep going. This fellow has been in progress for over a year. I think it was worth the wait. I have an exciting announcement to make in this historic challenge video. I'll be rolling out a Patreon account this week. So if you'd like to help support my art, you can go over there and see all the cool things that I have planned. Next week we'll have a whole video dedicated to a few things that I have planned over there. I'm still working out the last minute details, but it should be up and running in the next couple days. I'll post something to our community tab when it's good to go. I really appreciate any and all of your support. So please let me know your thoughts down in the comments. If you liked what you saw here today, consider liking the video. Perhaps a subscription? Eh? Thanks for meeting this challenge with me. That's all for today, my friends. Take care, and I'll see you next time. Are you ill?